All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep
Oh, yeah.
into some seriously thought-provoking stuff.
I love it.
We're going to be talking about the courage to be disliked.
Okay.
This book really delves into the ideas of Alfred Adler. Now, he was a psychologist who, really shook things up back in the 20th century.
Yeah, he definitely challenged a lot of conventional thinking.
For sure. And, this book isn't your typical self-help book either.
Yeah.
It's set up as this dialogue
Interesting.
between a young guy
Yeah.
who's pretty skeptical at first, like most of us would be,
Yeah,
and a philosopher who lays out Adler's ideas.
gotcha.
And some of these ideas are pretty radical.
Definitely.
So have you ever felt like your past experiences are holding you back,
Hmm.
or that you're constantly trying to please everyone around you?
Yeah, I think we've all been there
I think so too.
at some point.
Well, Adler might say you've got some unpacking to do.
For sure. And that's what's so cool about this book is it tackles some of these common beliefs head on.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, the idea that we're all shaped by our past traumas.
Right.
You know, the philosopher in this book, he throws out this curveball and he just says flat out, trauma doesn't exist.
Whoa, hold on. That's a bold statement.
It is.
So before people listening think we've gone totally off the rails here,
Yeah.
can you explain what that actually means?
Absolutely. You know, Adler's approach, it was all about looking at where we want to go,
Yeah.
not just where we've been.
So kind of like setting your GPS, you're focused on that destination
Yes, exactly.
and not so much the potholes you hit along the way.
You got it.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. So Adler argued that it's not the events themselves that define us, but the meaning we choose to give them.
Okay, so it's not about denying that difficult things happened.
Right.
It's about how we let those things affect us now,
Absolutely.
in the present.
Yes. And the book uses this really vivid example
Right.
of a man who's so terrified of the outside world that he's basically become a shut-in. Yeah. And, a traditional therapist,
Mhm.
they might try to dig into his past to, find some root cause.
Right, like a childhood trauma or something.
Exactly.
Oh,
But Adler would say that this guy's actually created these symptoms, the fear, the anxiety,
interesting.
to achieve a certain goal,
Really? Even if it's subconscious?
even if it's subconscious.
So maybe staying home protects him from some perceived danger out there.
Right. Or maybe.
Or maybe he's getting a ton of attention from his loved ones
Yeah.
by staying in.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
It is.
It's like a total mind shift.
It is a mind shift.
It really makes you wonder how much of what we're dealing with right now might be tied to meanings we've assigned to things.
Oh, yeah.
That happened a long time ago.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and the empowering thing here is that if we can choose a different meaning for those past experiences,
Okay.
we can actually create a different future for ourselves.
So what if those old hurts,
Yeah.
those perceived failures, could actually become sources of strength or lessons learned?
Is that what Adler is saying?
That's exactly what Adler would say.
Yeah.
And he would also say it's totally within your reach.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to get why this book is called The Courage to be Disliked,
Mm-hmm.
because it takes some serious guts to let go of those old narratives
Yeah.
and really rewrite our story.
Absolutely. And the young guy in the book,
Good.
he has a similar kind of aha moment.
Really?
He tries to argue that the past is fixed and unchanging,
Okay.
like the temperature of well water,
So it's always the same.
always 60 degrees, let's say.
Outside.
And so the philosopher asks this brilliant question.
What's that? I'm hooked.
He says, does that fixed temperature feel warm or cold?
Oh, interesting.
So the point is that even something as objectively constant as that is experienced subjectively.
Right, so it's relative.
It's
It
true.
depends on, your perspective.
And so our feelings about the past,
Yeah,
they aren't inherent to the events themselves.
right.
They're shaped by how we choose to perceive them in this moment,
In this moment.
right now. So we're not just glossing over the past
No,
or pretending it didn't happen.
not at all.
It's more about recognizing that we have the power to choose
Yes.
how those events inform our present
Mm-hmm.
and our future.
Absolutely, that power to choose to live in the here and now.
Yeah.
That's what Adler believed truly sets us free.
All right. Now brace yourself, because Adler throws another big one at us.
Okay, hit me.
He says that all problems
Mm-hmm.
are interpersonal relationship problems.
That's a big one.
All of them.
Wow.
He says all of them.
So the young guy in the book,
Oh,
he's ready to fight this one too. He's like,
no.
nope, some problems are internal struggles, man.
yeah, for sure.
But as that conversation unfolds,
Mm-hmm.
you start to see how even issues that seem totally personal
Right.
are often tied to our desire to connect with others.
So like to
belong,
Okay.
to be accepted.
So even when I'm like alone with my thoughts, those thoughts are shaped by my interactions with other people.
Right, think about it. Feelings of inferiority, fear of blushing, even procrastination.
Yeah.
These often stem from our worries about how other people perceive us.
Whether we're good enough, smart enough.
Lovable enough.
Right. All of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is.
So even if I'm struggling with something that I think is like super personal, it actually goes back to how I relate to others.
It often does.
That's wild.
It is wild. It's a different way of looking at things.
What are some examples from the book?
So the book talks about this woman who's desperate to cure her blushing.
Okay.
She thinks if she could just stop blushing,
Yeah.
she'd finally be able to confess her feelings for this guy she likes.
So I can see how that's connected to relationships.
Yeah.
She's worried about being rejected.
Exactly. And the philosopher points out that the real issue isn't the blushing itself.
But her fear of how this guy will perceive her,
Exactly.
her longing to be accepted.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It is, and it makes you wonder how many of our own challenges might actually be rooted in our relationships.
Even if we don't realize it.
Even if we don't realize it at first.
Right.
And Adler would say that by understanding and addressing those interpersonal dynamics, we can unravel even our deepest struggles.
So it sounds like Adler is making a strong case for connection.
He is.
Even though it can be messy and complicated at times.
He definitely is, but he also acknowledges the importance of healthy boundaries.
Within those connections.
Within those connections, yes.
Which brings us to that bold title, The Courage to be Disliked.
Right.
I mean, that sounds pretty intense.
It does.
In the book, the young guy is initially outraged.
Yeah.
I mean, it almost sounds antisocial, right?
I know.
Should we all just become hermits?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
But the philosopher helps him see it in a different light.
Okay, how so?
So think about how much energy we spend trying to please others, trying to fit in, avoid conflict.
Trying to be liked.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So what could you accomplish if you let go of that need for constant validation?
So it's not about being rude or pushing people away.
No.
It's more about realizing that we can't control how others perceive us, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
It's about being authentic.
It's about choosing to live authentically, even if it means some people won't approve.
And that takes courage.
And that takes courage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Me too.
Now, Adler introduces this concept of separation of tasks,
Yes.
which seems really important
It is.
for finding that courage.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about recognizing that we're only responsible for our own actions and choices,
Okay.
not for the reactions or behaviors of others.
Gotcha.
So we focus on what we can control.
Our own tasks.
Our own tasks.
And we let go of trying to control what we can't.
Exactly.
I see how that could be freeing.
It is.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So picture this. You're dealing with a boss who's having a meltdown.
Oh, yeah.
They're yelling, being unreasonable, taking their frustration out on you.
Happens all the time.
Right. And it's so easy to get sucked into that emotional whirlwind and try to appease them.
Yeah, I've done that plenty of times.
Right. But that's not your task.
Oh.
Your task is to do your job to the best of your ability.
Okay.
And to maintain professional boundaries.
So their anger is their task to deal with.
Their anger is their task to deal with.
Wow, that's such a helpful way to think about it.
Yeah, it can be.
By separating those tasks, you're creating some psychological distance.
Yes.
Some breathing room.
Yes, space.
You're not letting their emotion
Right.
become your problem.
Exactly.
And this doesn't mean being cold or uncaring.
No, not at all.
Right.
It's about recognizing where your responsibility begins and ends.
And I imagine that that separation of tasks can lead to healthier relationships overall. Because we're not constantly trying to control or fix other people.
It allows for more genuine connection.
Yeah.
Because we're not coming from a place of neediness or
Right.
fear.
This is all starting to come together.
Yeah.
But I can see how it would be tough to put into practice.
It does take practice.
We're so conditioned to seek approval and avoid conflict.
But the rewards are worth it.
Now, Adler draws a really interesting distinction between vertical and horizontal relationships.
He does.
Can you explain what he means by that?
Yeah.
So we've got these vertical relationships, which are all about like power dynamics, like
Right.
parent-child, boss-employee.
Yep.
And then there are horizontal relationships, which are based on equality and mutual respect.
Right.
Adler seems to be a big fan of those horizontal ones.
He definitely is.
Why is that?
Well, he says that vertical relationships often reinforce feelings of inferiority
Oh, wow.
or superiority.
Yeah, even when that's not the intention.
Even when that's not the intention.
Yeah.
And the book gives this really interesting example of how even something as seemingly positive as praise
Okay.
can actually be a tool for maintaining that vertical dynamic.
Interesting. Like what?
Like imagine a mom who goes overboard praising her kid for helping with dinner.
Okay.
They're such a good helper.
Yeah.
But if her husband did the exact same thing, she probably wouldn't make a big deal out of it.
Oh, I see.
Right.
So the praise isn't really about the act itself. It's
Mhm.
about reinforcing the child's position in the family.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And while that kind of praise might seem harmless,
Yeah.
it can actually be kind of detrimental because it teaches kids to seek external validation.
Rather than just having their own motivation.
Yes, rather than developing their own sense of intrinsic motivation and self-worth.
Right. So it's like they're always looking to someone else to tell them they're good enough.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. It reminds me of how some people are always fishing for compliments.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they need that constant reassurance
They need that external validation.
from others
Yeah.
to feel good about
To
themselves.
feel okay.
Okay, so how do we move toward those more horizontal relationships?
Right.
It sounds like a pretty big shift
It is a big shift.
in how we interact with people.
Yeah. It starts with treating everyone with respect
Okay,
and recognizing their inherent value.
regardless of their position,
Regardless of their position, their achievements,
even their behavior,
even their behavior, it's about moving away from judgment
and towards understanding
towards
that
understanding.
we're all in this together.
Yes, exactly.
So instead of trying to establish some kind of pecking order,
Right,
we're focusing on our shared humanity.
exactly. And then that brings us to another important Adlerian concept, community feeling.
Okay,
You know, that sense of belonging to something bigger than ourselves.
right.
The book tells this story about a guy who's become a total recluse,
Okay,
completely withdrawn from society.
right.
But the philosopher makes this really thought-provoking point that even this guy
Okay.
is still part of a larger community.
But how? He's cut himself off from everyone.
Right. But his actions
Mm-hmm.
still have ripple effects.
Oh,
Even something as simple as buying a loaf of bread
right.
connects him to the bakers, the flour producers, the delivery drivers.
So the point is, we're all interconnected,
Yes,
even when we feel isolated or alone.
exactly. We're all part of this giant web.
I like that.
And even if we're struggling in our immediate circle,
Yeah.
our family, our work, our friends,
We can still tap into that broader sense of belonging
yes,
that comes from being part of the human race.
exactly. And that feeling of belonging can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it can be. It gives us a sense of purpose.
Yes. It
Meaning-
reminds us that we're not alone in this crazy world.
Speaking of purpose, Adler seems to place a lot of emphasis on contributing to something larger than ourselves.
He does.
But in the book, the young guy kind of pushes back on this idea.
Right.
He sees it as either self-sacrifice
Okay.
or hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're doing something for others, shouldn't it be purely altruistic?
Right.
And if you get something out of it,
Yeah.
isn't that selfish?
Yeah. Adlerian psychology rejects that whole either-or dichotomy.
Oh, really?
It's not about self-sacrifice or personal gain.
So it's both.
It's about recognizing that we can contribute to others and experience a sense of fulfillment
At the same time.
at the same time.
So it's not about denying our own needs or pretending that we don't get anything out of helping others.
Right.
It's about finding that sweet spot
It is.
where we're making a positive impact and feeling good about ourselves.
Exactly. The book uses this simple example of doing the dishes.
Okay.
So imagine you're washing dishes, but you're resentful
Yeah, been there.
because nobody else is helping.
Yep.
And you're focused on what others aren't doing for you.
I've definitely fallen into that trap.
But what if instead you focused on what you are doing for them?
Okay.
Providing clean dishes.
Right.
So your family can enjoy their meals.
So it's a shift in perspective.
By shifting your perspective, you transform a chore into an act of love and service.
I love that.
Right.
It's like turning a mundane task
Yeah.
to something meaningful.
And that joy comes from recognizing the value of our contribution,
However big or small it may seem,
however big or small.
we all have something to offer.
We all have something to offer.
I'm noticing this recurring theme of courage
Yes.
throughout our conversation.
Yes.
It seems like every aspect of Adlerian psychology requires a certain level of bravery.
You're absolutely right. It takes courage to let go of the need for external validation, to trust others unconditionally.
And to embrace the uncertainty of the present moment.
Exactly.
That it takes courage to tackle those big life tasks that Adler talks about.
Yes.
Work, friendship, and love.
Those are some pretty universal challenges.
They really are.
But Adler believed that by facing those challenges head-on, we can achieve a deeper sense of meaning and fulfillment.
The young guy in the book seems to be struggling with this idea of just accepting normal.
He wants to be special,
Yeah.
achieve great things.
He doesn't want to just blend into the background.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely.
So what does Adler say about that?
Well, that's where this idea of energial living comes in.
Okay.
It's about shifting our focus
All right.
from striving for some distant future goal
Yeah.
to finding fulfillment in the present moment.
So it's not about giving up on our goals
Right.
or ambitions.
Not at all.
It's more about finding joy in the journey itself.
Exactly. The book uses this analogy of mountain climbing.
Okay, I like that one.
So if your only goal is to reach the summit, then the entire climb is just a means to an end.
Right. You're basically saying that the journey itself has no value.
Exactly. You're just enduring the climb so you can finally get to the top and say, I did it.
Right. And that's what Adler would call what?
That's what he called kinetic life.
Okay.
It's all about moving towards a future goal.
Right.
And until you reach that goal, your life feels incomplete.
But energial life is different.
How so?
It's about finding meaning in each step of the journey, in the act of climbing itself.
So it doesn't matter if you reach the summit or not.
Not necessarily, no.
The fulfillment comes from the experience of climbing.
Exactly. And this applies to all areas of life, not just mountain climbing.
Okay.
Think about your own life. Are you putting off enjoyment, fulfillment, even happiness until you achieve a certain goal?
Oh, yeah?
Maybe it's getting that promotion, buying that house, finding that perfect partner.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is, Adler would say, that by focusing so intently on the future, you're missing out on the richness of right now.
We tell ourselves I'll be happy when.
Right.
But that kind of thinking keeps happiness perpetually out of reach.
It does. And this doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or aspirations.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Each moment is an opportunity for growth,
Yes,
connection, and joy.
it is.
I love that. This reminds me of something the philosopher said about life being a series of moments,
Yes.
not a continuous line.
He challenges that narrative that our lives are predetermined, that we're on some fixed trajectory because of our past.
But Adlerian psychology says we have the power to choose our past,
In each moment.
regardless of what happened yesterday or even years ago.
Exactly. It's not one big story with a beginning, middle, and end.
Right, it's like a collection of individual moments,
Yes.
each with its own potential for meaning and fulfillment.
Exactly. And this is so incredibly liberating.
Yeah.
Because it means we're not bound by the past.
We can always choose to change,
Yes.
to grow, to create a different future for ourselves.
You got it.
That's powerful.
It is.
It also makes it clear why this book is called The Courage to be Disliked.
Yes.
It takes real courage to let go of that need for external validation, to trust others unconditionally, and to embrace the uncertainty of the present moment.
And Adlerian psychology actually offers some pretty practical tools for cultivating that courage.
Like what?
One of the key concepts is self-acceptance,
Okay.
which is different from self-affirmation.
Can you explain the difference?
Absolutely. Self-affirmation is about telling ourselves positive things even if they aren't really true.
Oh.
It's like trying to convince ourselves we're better, stronger, more capable than we actually are.
So like faking it till you make it.
Yeah, kind of.
But self-acceptance is different.
Self-acceptance is about acknowledging our imperfections, our limitations, even our failures, and accepting ourselves as we are.
Warts and all.
Warts and all.
So it's not about pretending to be something we're not.
Right.
It's about embracing our authentic selves.
Exact.
Messy bits and all.
Messy bits and all. And here's the cool thing.
What's that?
Self-acceptance doesn't mean resigning ourselves to mediocrity.
Okay.
The book actually argues that it's the foundation for growth and change.
Wait, so if we're accepting ourselves as we are, doesn't that lead to complacency?
Not at all. Think about it like this. You get a 60% on a test. Self-affirmation would be telling yourself you're actually a 100% student,
Right.
but you just had bad luck this time.
Gotcha.
Self-acceptance would be acknowledging that you're currently at a 60% level,
Yeah, okay.
and then asking yourself how you can improve.
So self-acceptance is about acknowledging where we are
Yes.
without judgment,
Without judgment.
and then focusing on what we can do to move forward.
Precisely. And this focus on action is a big part of what sets Adlerian psychology apart.
It's not about dwelling on the past
It's not about dwelling on the past.
or trying to change our thoughts and feelings directly.
Adler believed that action is the key to change.
So instead of trying to force ourselves to feel more confident or less anxious,
Right.
we should just focus on taking concrete steps
Yes.
towards the life we want to create.
Exactly. And even small steps can make a big difference.
They can add up.
They do. And by taking action, we start to build momentum and create a sense of agency in our lives.
And that sense of agency is what gives us the courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because when we realize we have the power to choose our own path, we're less dependent on the approval of others.
Yes.
We can make decisions that align with our own values and goals,
Mm-hmm.
even if those decisions aren't popular.
It's about recognizing that not everyone will like us, and that's okay.
Their opinion doesn't define our worth.
Their opinion doesn't define our worth.
This is all so eye-opening.
It is.
But now I'm curious about this idea of confidence in others.
Okay.
It seems like that would be especially tough if we've been hurt or betrayed in the past.
Right.
How do we develop that kind of trust?
Well, Adler actually makes a distinction between trust and confidence.
Okay.
Trust is conditional.
Okay.
It's based on evidence, past behavior guarantees.
Gotcha.
Confidence, on the other hand, is unconditional. It's about believing in the inherent goodness of others, even if they haven't earned it, or even if they've given us reasons to doubt them in the past.
So it's about choosing to believe the best in others,
Yes.
even when it feels risky.
Exactly. And the book acknowledges that this can be incredibly challenging,
Especially if we've been hurt before.
especially if we've been hurt before.
But Adlerian psychology says that having that unconditional confidence in others is crucial for building those truly meaningful relationships.
It is, because if we're always holding back, protecting ourselves, we're never really allowing ourselves to fully connect.
And confidence doesn't mean being naive
Right.
or letting people walk all over us,
It's not about giving up our boundaries.
ignoring red flags.
Right.
It's about choosing to believe in the possibility of positive change,
Yes.
even in difficult relationships,
Even in difficult relationships.
giving people the benefit of the doubt, even when it's hard.
Exactly. And this confidence in others is actually interconnected with all the other concepts we've been talking about.
Self-acceptance,
Self-acceptance, contributing to others,
MGL living,
energial living.
they all tie together.
They all tie together. When we accept ourselves as we are, we're less likely to feel threatened by others. When we focus on contributing to others, we move beyond our own self-centeredness.
And open ourselves up to connection.
Yes, and when we embrace energial living, we're less likely to get caught up in all that drama and conflict that can pop up.
In relationships,
Yeah.
like all these pieces fit together
They do.
to create a more harmonious way of being in the world.
Exactly, and it's an approach that emphasizes our own agency in shaping our lives.
I like that.
Adler believed we have the power to choose happiness.
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now.
I love that message.
Me too. It's a powerful message, and I think it's a message we can all benefit from hearing.
I agree. This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface of Adlerian psychology,
We have?
but we've definitely uncovered some real gems.
We have. And there's one more fascinating piece of this Adlerian puzzle that we haven't explored yet.
Oh, really? What's that?
The idea of life tasks.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing.
It is.
I'm ready to dive into that.
Right.
But for now, we'll have to leave our listeners hanging.
They'll just have to come back for the final part of our deep dive into the courage to be disliked.
Okay, deep divers, welcome back. We're here for the final part of our exploration into the courage to be disliked. And if you'll recall, we left off on this intriguing concept of life tasks.
We did. It's a big one.
So fill us in.
In Adlerian psychology, life tasks are basically these essential challenges we all have to face in order to really thrive.
Okay, like that.
And Adler breaks them down into three main categories: work, friendship, and love.
Those sound pretty universal.
They are. They're common to all of us.
But how are they tasks?
Well, each one presents us with these unique opportunities to learn, to grow, to really step into our full potential.
Interesting.
So work, that's about contributing to society, using our talents and skills to create something of value.
Yeah.
Friendship, that's about building genuine connections with other people, those bonds of mutual respect and support.
Right.
And then love.
The big one.
Yeah, that's about forming those deep, intimate connections that allow us to experience true vulnerability and acceptance.
So it's not just about going through the motions in these areas of life.
No, not at all.
It's about approaching them with intention,
Yeah.
awareness, that Adlerian courage we've been talking about.
You got it, because each of these life tasks inevitably brings us face to face with our own fears and insecurities.
What does that look like? You give me an example.
Sure, let's take friendship.
Okay.
Building real solid friendships requires us to put ourselves out there,
Yeah.
to be vulnerable,
Right.
to open ourselves up to the possibility of rejection.
That's scary.
It is. It takes guts. It takes courage to step outside our comfort zones.
And initiate those connections.
Exactly.
And I imagine the task of love can be even more daunting,
Oh, for sure.
especially if we've been hurt in the past.
Absolutely. To truly love another person means letting go of our defenses,
Yeah.
trusting them with our hearts, even knowing there's a possibility of pain. It's a risk, but it's a risk worth taking.
It sounds like these life tasks aren't just challenges.
Right.
They're opportunities for incredible growth.
Exactly. By facing these tasks head on.
With that Adlerian courage.
Yes. With intention, we develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
Now, the book really emphasizes that we shouldn't avoid these life tasks.
Right.
Even when they feel scary or overwhelming.
Yeah. Dodging those challenges
Mm-hmm.
ultimately leads to a diminished sense of self-worth and fulfillment.
Makes sense.
Adler uses the example of people who withdraw from society, becoming shut-ins or refusing to work.
Right.
They're not just lazy or antisocial. They're running away from the inherent messiness of human connection.
So they've lost that courage to engage in the real world
Yes.
with all its unpredictable ups and downs. What's the antidote to that fear?
Well, Adlerian psychology gives us a few key strategies.
Okay, I'm listening.
First, remember that idea of the separation of tasks?
Mm-hmm.
It's crucial here. We need to remember we're only responsible for our own actions and choices.
Right, not for the reactions of others.
Exactly.
So we can't control how other people respond to us,
Right.
but we can control how we choose to engage with them.
Yes, and that recognition frees us from that burden of trying to please everyone.
Or avoid conflict.
Yes, we can show up authentically without that constant worry about what others might think.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is.
And I think that second strategy goes hand in hand with this, that unconditional confidence in others that we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. When we truly believe in the inherent goodness of others, we're more likely to approach relationships with an open heart, that willingness to be vulnerable.
Yeah, we're less likely to put up walls
Right.
and shut down.
And finally, there's that beautiful concept of energial living, which reminds us to find fulfillment in the present moment rather than always striving for some future goal.
Right, because when we're truly present in our interactions with others, we can really experience the depth and richness of those connections.
Yes, without getting bogged down by anxieties about the past or expectations for the future.
Wow, this has been an incredible journey through the world of Adlerian psychology.
It has been.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on what it means to live a fulfilling life.
Me too.
It's not about achieving some perfect state of happiness
No.
or avoiding all hardship,
It's about embracing the messiness
the challenges.
and the immense beauty of being human.
It's about finding that courage to be ourselves, to connect authentically with others.
And to contribute to something larger than ourselves.
It's about choosing happiness right here, right now,
Yes.
and recognizing that we have the power to create the lives we truly desire.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So until next time, deep divers, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.